All right, hey everyone, let's dive into something pretty cool today. We're going to be looking at this YouTube video by this guy, SomeUnfilteredGuy, and he's talking about how to optimize your learning, all sorts of tips and tricks and really interesting stuff. So let's get right to it.
Yeah, one of the most interesting things right off the bat that he says is that memorization isn't learning.
Okay.
He says it's like building a house on a shaky foundation.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, you might think you've got it, but when push comes to shove, you're not going to really have it.
Yeah, you're going to forget it. You're not going to be able to recall it when you need to. And it's so true. I think I fall into that trap a lot, especially when it comes to things like history dates or, vocabulary lists.
Right.
I'm just trying to cram, and then it's gone.
Yeah. When he talks about learning being a contact sport.
Okay, what does that mean?
So it's like if you're learning to code, you can't just read about coding, right? You have to actually do it.
You have to get in there and do it.
Yeah.
So it's more about doing than knowing?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like learning to ride a bike.
Exactly.
You can't just read the manual.
Right. You're going to fall a couple times.
You have to actually get on there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So one of the things that he talks about is the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle.
Right.
I think I've heard of this, but remind me.
Yeah, so it's basically like 80% of your results are going to come from 20% of your efforts.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So if you can really zero in on that 20%, that's going to get you the most bang for your buck.
Okay.
And one example that he gives is if you're learning a new language,
okay,
instead of trying to learn every single word in the dictionary.
Yeah, that would be overwhelming.
Right, you could just focus on the top 1,000 most common words.
Okay.
And that would allow you to understand a huge percentage of just everyday conversation.
Right.
So just by targeting those very specific high impact words, you're going to get a lot more out of it than you would if you were just kind of going through the dictionary, A to Z.
So it's about prioritizing.
Exactly.
Figuring out what's the most important thing to focus on, especially when you're just starting out.
Absolutely.
That's cool. And then he talks about something called active recall.
Yes.
What is that?
Okay, so think about if you had to give a presentation, right? Are you going to just reread your notes over and over?
Okay, probably.
Or are you going to try and recall them from memory? Actually try and force yourself to remember them without looking at them?
So it's you're not just passively looking at it, you're actually trying to pull it out of your brain.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
And it's like a workout for your brain.
It's like lifting weights for your brain.
Yeah, the more you use it, the stronger those connections become.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Instead of just looking at the dumbbells, you're actually
you got to lift them.
You got to lift them. Yeah, that's cool. And then I think there was something about spaced repetition.
Yeah, so
I think I've heard of this before, but
so it's basically instead of cramming everything at once the night before a test.
Oh, yeah, we've all done that.
Right, you space it out over time, and that actually helps you retain the information a lot better.
Okay, so it's I'm trying to think of a good analogy. It's you can't build a house in a day.
Right.
You have to build it,
brick by brick.
Brick by brick over time.
Exactly.
And that's, how you build a strong foundation.
Yeah, and he even comparing it to carving a path in the woods. The first time you go through is really, overgrown and tough to get through. But the more you go back to it, the more you carve it out, the easier it becomes.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're carving those pathways in our brain. Essentially makes them stronger, more durable. Okay, cool. And then, there's this other one, deliberate practice.
Yeah.
Sounds a little scary.
It is a little scary.
What is that all about?
So it's about if there's something that you're really struggling with, let's say you're learning to draw.
Yeah.
And you're really good at drawing faces.
Yeah.
But you're terrible at drawing hands.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Instead of just drawing faces all the time, because you're good at that, you actually focus on drawing the hands.
You got to focus on your weaknesses.
Right.
Even though it's uncomfortable.
Even though it's frustrating.
Right. You got to get out of your comfort zone.
Exactly.
Okay. So it's about pushing yourself beyond what you're already good at.
Yeah.
And that's where the real learning happens.
Right. Where the growth happens.
Okay, cool. And then this is a weird one, and I'm curious to get your take on this. He talks about teaching what you're learning.
Yes.
That sounds so counterintuitive.
Well, and it seems okay, well, if I don't know it that well, how am I going to teach it?
How can I possibly teach it? Right, yeah. But by teaching it, you're actually forced to think about it in a different way.
Ah, okay.
You have to organize your thoughts. You're putting yourself in the teacher's shoes.
Right.
Even though you're still a student.
Right, and figure out how to explain it in a way that someone else would understand.
Okay, so you have to break it down and really understand it on a fundamental level.
Exactly.
Okay, that's cool. And he even suggests recording yourself explaining it.
Yeah.
As if you were going to, make a YouTube video.
Exactly.
Even if you don't actually post it.
Yeah.
Just the act of preparing to teach it helps you learn it better.
Right. Forces you to think through all those steps and really make sure that you understand it.
Okay, that's a cool tip. I like that. All right, so what else? Oh, engaging multiple senses?
Uh-huh.
This makes sense to me.
Yeah, so the more senses you involve, the better.
So, like if I'm learning Spanish,
Yeah.
I shouldn't just be reading it, I should be listening to it.
Listening, watching, writing, speaking.
Watching it, yeah, doing all the things.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. It's like, I don't know, it's like building a house. The more materials you use, the stronger it's going to be.
Exactly. Yeah, you're building more connections in your brain.
More connected. Okay, yeah, that makes total sense. All right, this is amazing. We're already learning so much. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to dive into even more of these awesome learning strategies from Some Unfiltered Guy. Stay with us. Welcome back. So we were talking about all these different learning strategies from Some Unfiltered Guy and how to kind of get the most out of our brains.
Yes.
What else did he have for us?
Well, one of the things he talked about, which I thought was really interesting, is making learning fun.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do that? Like, how do you make learning fun, especially when it's something you're not necessarily, like, naturally drawn to?
Yeah, well, he talked about setting like small goals
Okay.
and rewarding yourself when you reach them.
Okay, yeah, like little mini celebrations.
Exactly, and like even turning it into a game.
Oh, like gamification.
Yeah, like think about Duolingo, the language learning app.
Oh, yeah, I use that.
They have like points and badges and like...
You're competing with other people.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you get streaks going. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of addictive. I'm not going to lie.
And it's like, there's actually a scientific reason why that works. Like when you achieve a goal, even a small goal, your brain releases dopamine.
Okay.
Which is like a feel-good chemical.
So it's like we're hacking our brains to enjoy learning.
Right.
I like that.
But then he also cautioned against distractions.
Oh my gosh, yes, that's a big one.
Especially in today's world.
With our phones and our computers and like everything's beeping at us all the time.
Exactly. Like notifications and social media, it's so easy to get sidetracked.
Yeah, you sit down to like learn something and then next thing you know, you're like 3 hours deep in TikTok.
Right. So he really emphasized like creating a distraction-free environment.
Okay.
And like focusing on one task at a time.
So like putting your phone on Do Not Disturb.
Yes.
Closing all the tabs on your computer that you don't need.
Yeah, exactly.
Putting on some noise-canceling headphones.
Yeah, and like really giving it your full attention.
Full attention.
Because like multitasking, he said, is actually not good for learning.
Yeah, your brain can't really focus on two things at once. You're just kind of switching back and forth.
Right, so you're not really giving either task your full attention.
Okay, so single tasking.
There's
Oh,
six.
yes, got it. This is one that I'm kind of guilty of. He talks about sleep.
Uh-huh.
And I know sleep is important. But sometimes I feel like when I'm trying to learn something new, I need every waking moment to like cram it all in.
It seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, but he's saying sleep is actually really important for learning.
It is. Yeah, it's like your brain needs time to process everything.
Like offline processing time.
Yeah, like it's organizing all the information you took in during the day.
Okay, so while we're sleeping, our brains are still working.
Yes, it's like hitting save on your computer.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
You don't want to lose all your progress.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like if you're working out, you need rest days for your muscles to recover and grow.
Exactly.
Okay, so same thing with our brains.
Yes.
Rest is important. Okay, and then he talks about mindset.
Yes.
I feel like mindset is so important for everything, not just learning.
Absolutely.
If you go into something thinking like, oh, I'm bad at this, you're probably going to be bad at it.
Right. So he talks about like having a growth mindset.
Okay.
Instead of a fixed mindset.
So like believing that you can learn and grow and improve.
Exactly.
Instead of thinking that you're just stuck where you are.
Right. So like instead of saying I'm bad at math, you would say I'm not good at math yet.
Yet?
But I can get better.
Okay. So it's all about that little word, yet.
It's a powerful word.
It changes your whole perspective.
It does.
Okay, cool. And then the last thing I think, and this is a good one to end on, he says, enjoy the journey.
Yes.
And I love that because sometimes we get so caught up in the end goal.
The destination?
Yeah, like I got to pass this test or I got to get this certification, that we forget to actually enjoy the process of learning.
Right, and learning should be fun.
It should be.
It should be an adventure, like discovering new things.
Yeah, like a journey, not just a destination.
Exactly.
Okay, this has been so insightful. I'm like already feeling inspired to go learn something new.
Me too.
It's amazing how much was packed into that video.
Yeah, so many good tips.
It really shows that learning is not just about like being smart.
Right.
It's about like having the right strategies.
Having the right tools.
Yeah.
Knowing how to approach it.
And I think one of the things that really stuck out to me was how important it is to be an active participant.
Mm-hmm.
in your own learning.
Absolutely.
You can't just like sit back and expect it to just like download into your brain.
It's not osmosis.
Yeah, exactly. You got to work for it.
You got to be engaged.
This actually reminds me of what we talked about earlier, the teaching thing.
Yes.
Because even if you're not an expert,
Right.
the act of trying to teach something to someone else really forces you to understand it.
Absolutely. It forces you to think about it in a different way.
Yeah.
Organize your thoughts.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like a formal classroom setting.
No, not at all.
You could just be talking to a friend.
Your dog.
Yeah, or even just to yourself.
Right, just out loud.
Explain it out loud, and that helps solidify it.
It does, yeah.
I like that. And also the 80-20 rule, I keep thinking about that.
Yes.
Because it's so easy to get overwhelmed, I think.
Especially when you're first starting out.
Yeah, like where do I even begin? There's so much to learn.
Right.
But if you remember that 80% of your results are going to come from just 20% of your effort,
Exactly.
that helps you prioritize.
It does, yeah.
Focus on those like high impact things.
The most important things first.
Yeah, and then once you kind of got those down, then you can start to branch out.
Absolutely.
I'm definitely going to be using those techniques like active recall and spaced repetition.
Yes.
Those are game changers.
It are, yeah.
And also, I love the reminder to have fun with it.
It shouldn't feel like a chore.
No, it should be enjoyable.
Yeah.
Like set little goals, reward yourself.
Celebrate those small wins.
Yeah, and use gamification.
Yes.
It's amazing how powerful that could be.
It is.
Just tricking your brain into thinking it's playing a game
Exactly.
when really you're learning.
You're learning and growing.
Yeah. Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into optimizing learning.
I think so.
You've covered so much good stuff today.
A lot of really valuable insights.
But the real learning starts now, right?
Yes.
It's time to take all these strategies and actually put them into practice.
Go out there and experiment.
Yeah, figure out what works for you.
And don't be afraid to try new things.
Yeah, because everyone learns differently.
Exactly.
So find what works for you and enjoy the journey.
That's the most important part.
Yes, absolutely. All right, that's it for today. Keep those minds sharp, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.